Welcome to the HR Empowerment Podcast, where we will uncover strategies and new insights from HR professionals who discuss up-to-date regulations, best practices, and the most pressing topics like diversity and equity, leadership, dealing with difficult situations, and much more that affect your bottom line and business. Thanks for joining us.
Hey everybody, Wendy Sellers here, the HR lady. Welcome to our podcast. It's JC and I today to talk about unique benefits for all size companies.
And Wendy,
how you doing, JC?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. You're not talking about unique benefits like, hey, I've got 5 tickets to head to the Shriners Circus or anything. You're talking like something a little bit more important, right?
Hey, we could throw in the Shriners Circus in there too. So let's put that on pause right now. But seriously, let's not throw that into the trash can, because the thing with benefits today, it's 2022, close to 2023, is that we need to personalize benefits for employees. And that's an almost impossible task, because we have, even if you just have 5 employees, how are you going to personalize it for 5 different people? Imagine if you have 500 or thousands of employees.
Yeah.
But people want different things. That's really what it comes down to. And it's expensive.
Hey, Wendy, how complicated would it be? We own our cars and we buy insurance for our cars independently. It seems like an incredible task when you're thinking about the small business owner having to go out and buy their own independent insurance or something like that. When you've got multi-million-dollar corporations out there that offer these amazing packages, but it's like they're getting a group buy price or something like that. I don't know. There's a whole thing going on there.
There really is. I mean, the businesses that are considered small employers, which are a majority of our businesses in the United States, are small employers. So let's just say under 100 employees, but really probably just, 20, 25 employees. If you don't have 50 or 100 employees, there's some magical numbers there in the health insurance world, for example. But if you don't have a minimum of 50 or 100 employees, you are at a great loss, and you're not going to get a great group rate, because now your risk is spread over a very small amount of people. The companies that have thousands and thousands of employees, the risk on the insurance side is, okay, most of those employees, or many of those employees, are going to be healthy. Many of those employees are going to be young. Many of those employees aren't going to need these benefits. So when the company buys insurance for everybody, let's face it, the insurance company is making money because many of your employees aren't using that health insurance. You know what I mean?
So I guess that's all the more reason just to get rid of your older employees.
Yeah, no, my goodness, no. Let me catch my breath there. No, I know you're saying that tongue in cheek.
Only kidding.
Just everybody listening, that is illegal.
Don't do that. It is not good advice. Bad advice right there.
Yeah, and it's illegal to be asking about their health in interviews, and when you're putting them on your payroll as well. And I know companies do it and they don't know any better. So if you're listening, please. Health insurance needs, health needs are no reason for hiring or terminating an employee. But some stats are in pre-pandemic. So pandemic is a whole other thing, but pre-pandemic, the average employee received 32% of their compensation. So their total compensation, not the actual money that goes into their bank account, via benefits. So what do you mean by benefits? It could be paid time off, any kind of insurance, down to life insurance, retirement plans, matches, whatever it might be. That's 32% is huge, a huge cost for small employers.
Bigger than a huge cost for some. And I'll tell you what, taking a look at some of the things that you shared with me before today's podcast, there's something here I'm not really familiar with, and maybe you could help dissect this, and hopefully people listening along will learn a little bit along the way, too. It's this hospital indemnity insurance. Is that a thing? What's going on with that?
Yeah, it's interesting that we're doing this topic today, because I just spent like an hour and a half going down a rabbit hole this morning for a friend who left a larger company recently and went to a small company, and that small company doesn't offer health insurance. And so she has a few choices. The choices are COBRA, which is incredibly expensive. And so hold that thought on that indemnity a minute here. I want to read a stat to you from the 2021 Kaiser Family Foundation report. It says that average health insurance premiums, and this is for small firms, not even just for individuals, $7,813 a year for single coverage. That's not even including your copays, your deductibles, your high deductibles. So that's just to get the plan. And I can guarantee you that's probably a high deductible, meaning you got to pay $10,000 out of your pocket. You, the employer, which many aren't going to do that, or you, the employee, have to pay your premium and then pay, say, $10,000, $6,000, whatever it might be out of your pocket before you're even covered, for example, for maybe a surgery.
Right.
So it's really expensive. So, I was going down this path this morning trying to help my friend out because I'm a licensed health insurance agent. I don't use it. I don't sell insurance. I just got it so that I could help my clients and understand what it means to, have health insurance, and so that no other agent or company takes advantage of them. So usually when I come to the table, the other insurance agents are like, uh-oh.
It just got real.
Yeah, it just got real. She knows the terminology, and it's super, super complicated. So I was telling my friend, okay, she's a very healthy person, rarely goes to the doctor, maybe once or twice a year. She's like, I'm not going to go and pay this, $1,200 in COBRA. Or if I went and she was going to get another plan that was like $700 and some a month.
Yeah.
And that was pre-deductible. She's like, this is ridiculous. I don't use health insurance. I don't want to pay all that. So another option I was giving her is this thing called indemnity plans.
And by the way, you're saying $700 a month. I mean, for some people that, might be in an affordable part of the country, that's something that they could plan for or save for. But in certain areas of the country, rent is way too high. The cost of living is so high, mortgage rates, etc. And I really want to emphasize rent there, because in many of the cities up here in New York, the rent is so high that $700 is just going to go towards you having a one-bedroom studio apartment. So you could be talking about the difference between food in the refrigerator or healthcare coverage for the month.
Exactly. And where I live right now, it's incredibly expensive to, rent a hole in the wall as well. And, it's just insane. It's completely insane. We won't go down the path of talking about, getting national health care or anything like that, but we're not there yet and don't know if we ever will be. But there are options, and I want the small employers to know. So in theory, if you're a large employer, so you have over 50 employees, and there's some ratios you do there, but let's just say 50 full-time employee equivalents. Once you're now considered a large employer, which I laugh because you're really not. Right. But the law is, okay, you're supposed to offer your employees health insurance. Many of my clients who are 55, 60 employees, they're like, I can't afford as an employer to offer this, nor do my employees want to take it because they're getting it from the government, from the Affordable Care Act, or from Medicare or Medicaid, or, if they have a disability, or they're getting it from a spouse's plan. Yeah. So not only does the employer can't afford it, the employees are saying, no, we can't afford it either, so we don't want it from you. And so it puts us all in this pickle. So, an option for the folks that are listening are saying, I still want to help my employees, even though I have a very small budget. You can be looking into things called supplemental indemnity plans. And one of them is a hospital plan. I have these for myself. You've probably heard of these under companies like Aflac. But Aflac has a lot of competitors as well. And so there's a lot of different plans out there. And basically what it is, it says, hey, Wendy, you're going to go to the doctor and you're going to pay for it out of your own pocket, whatever, because you don't have health insurance. And then you're going to turn in a claim to your supplemental indemnity plan, which is super cheap, by the way. And that plan is just going to send you a check. And you could do whatever you want with that check. You can go buy groceries. You can pay, reimburse yourself for that doctor's appointment, whatever it is. But the indemnity plans are a really cheap option for employers to offer something to their employees. And then the employees can say, oh, okay, I don't need, dental, but I need hospital coverage, or I don't need, accident, but I need something else. And so please talk to an agent. For the folks that are listening. You can call me if you want. I'll connect you with somebody. I'll find somebody for you. But the indemnity plans literally gives your employees cash in hand for whenever they use medical services. And the one last thing I want to say about that is you, the employer, don't even have to pay for it. I encourage you to pay for it, because otherwise, what benefit is it really?
Sure.
But you can just say the benefit is we're offering it through our services, and we'll help you hook it up and everything. But I would encourage you to say, hey, we're going to give it to everybody gets, $100 a month, and you get to pick out a plan that adds up to $100. Does that make sense?
It says here in some of the statistics, the average hospital stay costs over $10,000 for each visit. And if you're thinking about having children, having a baby is a beautiful yet expensive time investment. Really is. Hospital indemnity insurance can help reduce that final stress of having a baby and starting a life together. Or even if you're looking to adopt and you've got childcare needs and concerns moving forward, there's considerations there as well.
Yeah, there really is. So please, make sure that you're looking at these plans. Obviously, you can't see my screen because we're on a podcast, but I just pulled up a quote that I was looking at this morning for my friend, and it's a hospital indemnity plan, $123 a month. And you get coverage for going to get a checkup. You'll get a $75 check every time you go get a checkup. You get payments, a cash payment for if you've had to get an x-ray done. You get money, if you were in the hospital. For this plan, it was like for every day you're in the hospital. If it was a sickness, you get $1,000 a day. If it was an injury, $2,000 a day. There's ICU benefits, hospital benefits, ambulance, surgery, emergency room. There's a ton of them. Please look into it, because it is a really great option. There was a plan I was looking at today. I think it was like $25 a month. Of course, wow. And the money was that you are going to get reimbursed if you went to a hospital, obviously is a lot lower, but it's something. It's something to say, hey, employee, I care about you, and I understand you're getting health insurance somewhere else, traditional health insurance, because we don't offer it. But what I am going to offer you is an opportunity to sign up on the indemnity plan. Hopefully you're going to be the employer that says, and I'm going to give you some money towards that, by the way.
Right. There's tons of questions on the table in regards to common benefits for all organizations. Do you want to do that coming up next?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be right back.
Thank you for joining the HR Empowerment Podcast, brought to you by Aurora Training Advantage. We hope you've gained new insight and strategies to navigate the HR profession. We look forward to you joining us again on the HR Empowerment Podcast. Welcome to the HR Empowerment Podcast, where we will uncover strategies and new insights from HR professionals who discuss up-to-date regulations, best practices, and the most pressing topics like diversity and equity, leadership, dealing with difficult situations, and much more that affect your bottom line and business. Thanks for joining us.
Welcome back, everybody. Wendy Stellers, the HR lady. I have here with me JC.
Howdy.
We're going to move on here and talk about common benefits for all organizations. And for those that maybe are new to having a company, definitely start taking some notes. Hopefully not if you're driving. You can listen to this later. But remember that, benefits go way beyond just healthcare and physical health. And I think that's the biggest thing that most business owners or small business owners specifically think about when they say benefits. They're like, oh, time off and health insurance. All I can afford is time off. I can't afford health insurance. So in the previous session, we already talked about health insurance, but what other common benefits do you know of, JC?
Well, I can tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt, I know a lot of guys around my area here that are actually in the trades, like machinists, okay? And there's a lot of large organizations in the area where they could go, be employed for an extended period of time, and do quite well. However, there's so many small businesses in the area that branch off, and they turn out to be subcontract tier suppliers or specialized and focused in model making or other things of that nature. But sometimes workers don't leave the big company to take that stab in the dark in that good old Jerry Maguire moment because they don't know what to do planning for the future. They don't necessarily have a retirement intact. They don't have a, what's that mythical thing we all hear of? Oh, yeah, a pension locked in from that big, from that big employer. Right. You know? And how can the small business compete with that in today's market to further recruit and bring on new workers of any age to fill these roles?
It is very, very difficult. And it's funny that you mentioned pension. I think that's really just in government now, maybe. Retirement plans came about at one point in our country's history as a benefit and said, okay, if you work for our company for X amount of years, and I mean like 30, 40 years, then we're going to take care of you in retirement. Well, that got really, really expensive. And so that's why you don't really see many pension plans anymore. And then even the retirement plans are a whole other thing that came about to say, hey, we want to figure out a way to, market to our employees to not leave us and not leave us for our competitors. So we're going to start investing in your retirement and give you an option to invest in it. And of course, you save taxes and everything, but not all small businesses can even afford or know what to do with retirement plans because retirement plans are governed by the Department of Labor and the IRS. And many small businesses just say, nope, not going there.
Not getting involved.
I kind of don't blame them because if you don't have a benefit, right? So you don't have health insurance or you don't have retirement plans, and then you do. Now, once you do have it, you are in the legal world. So there's all these hoops you as the policy owner, which is the company, has to jump through. And if you get it right, or wrong, you get sued. And you can like lose your entire business. So don't go it alone, folks. If you're getting a health plan, anything that we're talking about today, get a consultant, get experts involved so that you don't end up doing something wrong while we're trying to do the right thing.
Not everybody has the flexibility of working at home or remotely either. There's many organizations throughout the country, many small businesses and companies where you do have to show up every day for work, especially in the agriculture industry. But when we talk about paid time off, we might be looking at a situation where said employer for their entire existence has been giving away X amount of hours per week accrued. But there's a lot of them out there that have been leaning a little bit more towards unlimited personal time off.
Yeah, so there's just an article out recently in Bloomberg.com about unlimited PTO. And the interesting thing, and I totally see this happening, it says basically that employers are the ones that are actually benefiting from unlimited PTO, not employees. And the reason is the studies show that employees, whether they have a given amount of PTO or unlimited, they take the same amount. And the average, it says here in this article, is 11 to 12 days a year. So in theory, if you have unlimited, you could have took 45, but you only took 11 or 12 days.
Right.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think they are only taking, basically 2 weeks plus?
Well, I used to work for an organization much like that. It was unlimited. At the same time, it created a culture that was much more relaxed. And there was a lot more personal buy-in from myself and many of the other people that worked there. So when it came to time off, you definitely want to make sure that you had things locked and airtight, but you still felt responsible while you were away. You had that perception in the back of your head, like, well, I really don't want to be gone too long, or I'm not really out of pocket for this 1 or 2 weeks away. You can still reach me. I'll check in periodically. It raises the bar of self focus in a way.
Yeah. And that's exactly what this article says too. And I've seen it in many clients. And if you're going to do the unlimited PTO, you have to take, my advice is to take the next step and say, it's unlimited PTO. We really mean it's unlimited, and it's mandatory that you take, 2 or 3 weeks off a year. It's mandatory. You have to take it, because it's exactly what you said, JC, is that people feel like they still have to have one foot in the game. And I'll give you an example. My one client, which is a small client, I would say they probably have a dozen employees now. Everybody is unlimited PTO, and pretty much 90% of their company is salary. So they also expect that their salaried employees check in on a regular basis while they're on that PTO. And so, there's a give and a take on both sides. And if you're expecting your employees to check in and they're out on a cruise for 4 days, or 2 weeks, like 2 weeks I could see, but 4 days, like, no, man, you should be able to handle things while they're gone. Let them go on vacation.
Yeah. Yeah. Let them decompress. Talking about vacations, there was someone I talked to many years ago. I'm not going to drop names right now, but I will talk about the organization that he was with. It was called Travel as a Benefit, the TAB card. It was something that employers could buy into, and it provides employees benefits for travel. Let that be hotel, airfare, etc. So when you are in that situation where you maybe have a cafeteria plan, you're setting money aside periodically, the employer's putting money in there, you're getting what you need from the healthcare perspective. Well, your personal health is sometimes also having that need to go to Bora Bora, right?
Yes, let's do it. Yes.
So the employer could actually buy into one of these plans. It was the number one product for employers on the charts back in 2018. Hopefully after some of the major surges of the pandemic, we'll start to see travel as a benefit start to come back in the workforce a little bit too. Who knows? Yeah,
absolutely. And going off of the travel benefits and then the unlimited PTO too, the other things I wanted to say is be careful with not just your hourly employees, but your salary too.
Oh, yeah.
So with your hourly employees, if you're making them check in while they're on this unlimited PTO, I mean, you just need to make sure that, of course, you're paying them already because it's PTO and it's paid time off, but you have to be careful with that over 40 hours. And then in some weird states, maybe even overtime based on per work day. And so you do need to be careful on that. And then with the travel as a benefit too, like, okay, if they can work maybe from Bora Bora for the week, is that fair? Why even go to Bora Bora
Exactly.
if you're working there for the week,
Right.
You shouldn't say, oh, you have to be in person on a regular basis. But by the way, when you're in Bora Bora, you still got to work. Like, no, that's not the case. I would rather you say, I don't care where you work from, assuming you have your job allows you to work virtually.
Right.
I don't care where you work from. It's work. And I don't care if you work 20 hours or 60 hours. This is the job that needs to get done. There's a lot of gray area there with, especially with hourly, right? Because if you're saying, I don't care how many hours you work, just get the job done. Well, if it only takes person A 26 hours to get the job done and person B, 40 hours to get the job done and they're hourly, are you going to pay person A 40 hours worth of work? Or are you going to just pile more work on them? So so many
They're going to have more work
things.
piled on. Absolutely.
Oh,
hey,
yeah.
You know
I'm
what's
sure.
funny though too? We're talking about benefits, everything like that. We previously had talked about health insurance. We really haven't touched on dental plans, but thinking about dental and thinking about benefits, it immediately made me think of an old dentist that I used to have a long time ago. And this dentist was a very fantastic dentist, one of the best, very large, very great, amazing dentist. And the dentist looked so familiar, Wendy, and I couldn't figure out where from. And then I realized the dentist used to be the person that helped me at Home Depot for years. And that person was going to school the entire time that they were at Home Depot, and Home Depot actually helped pay for their degree. Education assistance in the workplace, it's a big deal. It might be tough for small employers, though. I don't know. What do you think about education assistance as a benefit?
Absolutely. Training and development is so important. If we haven't learned anything during this whole great resignation, great reshuffle, whatever you want to call the past few years, we should have learned that employees want to, first of all, be trained for the job that they're doing, and then they want to be developed for the future, whether it's rising up the ranks or just continuing to self-develop. If you are not providing some kind of education, not just related to the job, but again, college benefits, tuition, YouTube learning, LinkedIn learning, some kind of program learning, of course, learning for the program that we're talking on right now, Aurora Training Advantage. If you are not providing some kind of training and development benefit, whether it is, again, a reimbursement or, hey, we have access to all this, here's your user ID, you are losing out. And the other thing I want to say there, it's not that expensive in the end. Be careful, though, if you are doing the college benefits where you're saying, oh, if you've been here 1 year, you get this amount of money that you can get reimbursed. If you've been here 3 or 5 years, I've seen companies in the past say, if I give you this $5,000 for college, then you have to sign this and you have to stay here for a year.
Yes.
Or you leave, you got to pay it back. That's not a benefit. That's a threat.
They call it the West Virginia trap, actually, because West Virginia was paying people for the longest time to move there. But you had to stay there, and you would get X amount of dollars a year for living and working. The West Virginia trap. No offense to anyone from West Virginia out there by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't know that, actually. So now I'm going to have to go look that up. I'm sure there's a blog on that somewhere.
Absolutely. We covered a lot on some of the core common benefits for all organizations. One thing we didn't touch on, though, was just general discounts all the way around, right? Maybe not necessarily those Strider Circus tickets, but maybe they are. But it could also be benefits like discounts at what do you say, like Costco or a gym membership or things like that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of companies, if you're local, so if you're in one, zip code, or even if you're in a few, I used to work for a company and we had offices all over the United States, and depending on what city you were in, and they were at that point in time in-person jobs, depending on what city you were living in and working in. You might have a Sam's Club membership in this city, but Sam's didn't exist in the other city. So we got a corporate program with Costco. Gyms are a great way. A lot of companies do in gyms on site as well. Well, you then probably need to consider doing a shower on site as well. And there's a whole other type of training you need to do then, making sure there's safety and things like that. But discounts are huge in so many of the health insurance companies or the agencies. They can help you with that. And then your local HR associations can help you with that. Yeah. And that's just a couple $100 a year that you got to pay. And now your whole company, hundreds of employees get these discounts too.
Wise words from a very wise HR professional, the HR lady, ladies and gentlemen. What do we got coming up later on here this week? What's coming up next in our next episode?
Our next episode, I want to talk about even more unique benefits than the common ones we just discussed, and for those rock star employers. So see you soon.
Thank you for joining the HR Empowerment Podcast, brought to you by Aurora Training Advantage. We hope you've gained new insight and strategies to navigate the HR profession. We look forward to you joining us again on the HR Empowerment Podcast. HR Empowerment Podcast. Welcome to the HR Empowerment Podcast, where we will uncover strategies and new insights from HR professionals who discuss up-to-date regulations, best practices, and the most pressing topics like diversity and equity, leadership, dealing with difficult situations, and much more that affect your bottom line and business. Thanks for joining us.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Wendy Sellers here, the HR lady with JC.
Aloha.
We're going to continue this conversation on unique benefits for all size companies, really focusing on, benefits that those small companies can offer specifically if you're trying not to break the bank, and maybe if you can't afford the big benefits such as health insurance, medical, dental. But if you're a large employer, this is for you too. What unique benefits do you have that set you apart as an employer of choice, or that you wish you had?
Yeah, I mean, it could be as simple as like daily pints of ice cream, massages and yoga, or maybe what's that other one that, it's very popular? The goat yoga. You bring goats in and they walk on your back or something, right?
I think you're going to probably need some other liability insurance for that too. I would encourage you that if you are bringing any goats into the workplace, which would be totally cool, by the way, maybe, hire an outside company that comes with the insurance liability. Right. So all you got to do is schedule it. And that's the other thing too. I've worked for many size organizations, small and medium and large. And the rule of thumb, for me was always originally, okay, let's see what we can get as cheap as possible until somebody has an accident or something happens. So pay the extra few bucks and pay an external company to do those things like goat yoga.
It's interesting when you start thinking about unique benefits, though. It doesn't have to be something completely off the wall, like Velcro walls and skydiving. It could be something pretty simple, like no official work hours. I hear that's a thing.
Yeah. And now, again, we get into the salary versus hourly thing and how you tracking people's time. I personally, I don't worry so much about the salary versus the hourly. As long as I'm tracking people's time, why am I going to hold hourly people more accountable to getting stuff done than salary? Here, clock in, clock out. The only thing you do know is if an hourly person clocks in, and even if they didn't get their work done, you still got to pay them. So, right. It's the point of being there. There are so many benefits above and beyond the common ones that we discussed, and some that we didn't even discuss, vision, long-term care, short-term disability, all those indemnity insurances, pet insurance, financial wellness programs, online identity protection. Believe it or not, a lot of those are actually the common ones. But what should you do to be different? It depends on your culture. It really does. It depends on your location, depends on if you're in person or virtual, and then it depends on your culture. And then, of course, it does depend on your budget as well.
Two of the things that stand out to me on some of the information shared back and forth between us before the show was scheduled socialization during the workday. It doesn't necessarily have to supersede the lunch hour. Just blocking out time during your day where you and your teams can meet for let it be a half hour twice a week, or maybe a solid hour or two periodically. But schedule socialization doesn't necessarily have to be work-oriented discussion, but really just downtime during the day where you could just get to know each other a little bit better, or just, I don't know, talk about that football game that got played the night prior or something. I don't know. What do you think about that?
It's really important. It really is. Another idea that you can do for whether, if you're working virtually, it's a little awkward at first, but we're all used to it at this point. If we're working virtually of socializing on Zoom, for example, you and I do it all the time, right, JC? Yeah. So it's like, that's the way we catch up because we live so far apart. But doing that scheduled socialization in person or virtually is very important. Why? If I'm friends with you or friendly with you and you're my coworker and I'm having a bad day, or my manager just really made me angry, I'm going to be less likely to go home and resign that day because I don't want to let my friends down. And so folks that are listening, those ice cream socials, those coffees, those sending a lunch to somebody's home and then having lunch on Zoom together, it may seem like, oh, this is just ridiculous and people want everything, but it improves your team engagement, your commitment to each other, not to you, the company, but to each other.
Yes, absolutely. And aside from scheduling that socialization, if your culture isn't really accepting of scheduled socialization and maybe you're trying it out a little bit here and there, you got to weigh the pros and cons and say to yourself, well, I suppose that we could still sacrifice 3 to 4 hours or 2 to 4 hours every 2 weeks and just cut everyone loose on that every second Friday, just a little bit early. Shut the doors down early. Let them walk out. Who knows? Could be a nice benefit it's still going to cost you, but will it cost you as much as goat yoga, Wendy? I don't know.
Well, the funny thing is, another way, thank you for bringing that up. If your culture doesn't accept, the socialization and the wasting time, well, how about connecting it to something that maybe could be a tax write-off, right? Like charity work, right? Okay, we're going to pull together, we're all going to go in the lunchroom or we're going to meet somewhere and we're going to put together bags for the local homelessness initiative. And we're going to make sure that their lunches are given out, or we're putting together clothing drives, whatever it is. Or you're literally collecting money and then you're donating it, which could be a tax write-off. Not everything given to charity is a tax write-off, and time is not a tax write-off. So, you need to talk to your CFO and not your HR department in that area.
Well, some people do say charity begins at home, Wendy. And to that, after-hours experiences are a real big thing in the extra benefits world, if you think about it. If you are going to be giving back in the community, here's a wild idea. I'm just going to put this out there, Wendy. You tell me if I'm nuts. I don't mind it, okay? But in the same way that you might go at the end of the week or scheduled periodically, you have your staff go and give back to the community and clean up someone's yard or do what for different organizations like that. Have a chore help rotation. You've got a company of under 50 people. Everyone pulls together and mows Ted's lawn today. And next week we're going to Susie's house. And next week it's the next person, etc. I don't know. There's something to be said for after-hours surprises. Let it be surprise trips or affording your employees date nights. But chore help, sending the entire staff over to someone's house because they're trying to put new shingles on. You know what? The whole company is here to help you today. Don't worry about it.
I have to tell you, my company that I worked at, where I started my HR career, we were literally, our company values were called our family values. And we were one big family. I'm here in Florida. We got hit with a lot of hurricanes at one point in time.
Oh, yeah.
And there was no question asked. Now, our insurance company did not like what we were doing. So please, again, you're going to talk to your insurance agents too, and probably your CFO. But when those hurricanes hit, and as soon as the roads were open and safe, what did many of our employees do? They went to the office to clean it up. And it's like, what? You got to be kidding me. Nobody asked. And to me, as the HR person, I'm like, oh my God, everybody's got to get out of there. It's not safe, But in the end, it got done because people cared so much about the office. And then everybody went to each other's house. Literally, JC, you just mentioned it about shingles. I had my roof put on by my coworkers.
That's so
and then
cool.
we went and put 3 roofs on together. So I learned how to roof from my coworkers who happen to be engineers, because there was no roofers available for almost a year here in Florida. You can get the supplies, but you couldn't get the people to do the roofing. And so, yep, I was the first one. It was a joke. Well, it's good enough for Wendy's house and we'll just test everything on her house. But I got a roof put on by coworkers, and then we went and did 2 other ones. Now, I'm not saying go that far. Again, any insurance people on here right now are probably sweating bullets because it is dangerous. You have to make sure that's not company time. It's volunteer time.
Right.
But let's talk about volunteer work too. You can pay your employees, 2 to 3 days off a year or 40 hours a year, and say, you get 40 hours a year off, or let's just start small, 1 day off a year, and we're going to pay you to go volunteer at a local charity. That's a huge benefit.
It's a win-win for everyone involved. I'll tell you what, paychecks are a big thing, and the way we get paid could actually turn out to be a benefit in a way.
Absolutely. Let's talk about that in our next episode coming right up.
Thank you for joining the HR Empowerment Podcast, brought to you by Aurora Training Advantage. We hope you've gained new insight and strategies to navigate the HR profession. We look forward to you joining us again on the HR Empowerment Podcast. Welcome to the HR Empowerment Podcast, where we will uncover strategies and new insights from HR professionals who discuss up-to-date regulations, best practices, and the most pressing topics like diversity and equity, leadership, dealing with difficult situations, and much more that affect your bottom line and business. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. It's Wendy Sellers, the HR lady, and JC.
Hey, everyone. Hot off the heels of looking up Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin, all the way down to Lake Mary, Florida. It's my pleasure to be back here. How you doing?
Living the dream over here. Unfortunately, what I do want to talk about here as a unique benefit, and even when I was doing some research, getting prepared for this podcast, I would kind of went down a rabbit hole like I usually do, because I'm like, wow, you would think that a common benefit is just having direct deposit, right?
Yeah.
Like, well, who doesn't have direct deposits? Well, guess what? Many Americans.
A lot of people don't even have a bank account.
Many Americans don't even have a bank account. There's an article in, it's called Make It, CNBC Make It, and it was at the end of 2020. 7.1 million American households didn't have a bank account. 7.1 million American households didn't have a bank account. Why do you think that is?
All right, I've got this pulled up as well, and that was written by Megan Leonard. This is from CNBC. Make It right there. Overall, FDIC estimates that 124.2 million American households had at least one member with a bank account, but the 2019 survey was conducted in conjunction with the U.S. Census Bureau and collected responses from nearly 33,000 households. 5.4% of U.S. households, or approximately 7.1 million homes, were unbanked, according to the FDIC. That's the lowest rate reported since the FDIC started surveying Americans in 2009. That's shocking. That's a shocking statistic.
Here's an even more shocking statistic in that same article. Among those 7.1 million that didn't have a bank account, more than half, 56.2%, didn't want one. They weren't interested in obtaining a checking or savings account at all. The reason is the fees.
Yeah.
Most banks require you to have a minimum balance in order to have an active bank account. Well, that minimum balance may be the difference between having groceries that week or not. And so they just say, no, I'm not going to have I'm not going to have a bank. So what does that mean? That means employers need to get creative and look up, well, how am I going to pay them? Because direct deposit's the easiest and the cheapest.
So one thing to remember, ladies and gentlemen, the Fair Labor Standards Act, 1938 statute, dictates how workers in the U.S. receive wages. And currently workers must be paid in American currency, which is rooted in the statute's origins, according to many people that have researched this across the country. So legally, the reason I'm putting this build up here in place, the payment of wages in cryptocurrency is not officially recognized at this time. A lot of people have said, just pay me in Ethereum, pay me in Bitcoin. I'm going to revolutionize the way it's going to be. There's still laws and acts in place that you do have to be mindful of.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of laws, there are laws across the United States about if you can or cannot have a mandatory direct deposit requirement in your organization. And more states than not say, no, you cannot do that. I'm looking at a list here from Paycor.com, and almost every single state, I'm seeing a couple yeses, you can allow that, but most states are saying, no, you cannot mandate that your employees must have direct deposit because, again, 7.1 million Americans do not have a bank account, which means you as the employer then need to get creative. And we know that's going to cost money. And we also know that it costs time. Direct deposit happens, in theory, instantaneously, but it's usually overnight, where printing a check or giving a cash card is something that's going to take a little bit more time and money, right?
I'm just trying to wrap my head around getting paid in Best Buy gift cards right now.
No, what I meant by the gift cards is here's a Visa card,
Right.
and or whatever it might be, and you can use this anywhere, and we're going to keep renewing this or reloading this card. So that is now your paycheck. Here's your card, and on Friday your paycheck will be on there. But you, as the employer,
Creative.
you need to be providing that card, and then you need to be providing access to their online account, and you need to be providing what happens if I lose it. How do I turn it off?
And who's taking care of the fees? Who takes care of the fees to have that card in place? Right.
All of those things. And you need to know what your state laws are in the state that your employees live in, not just where the employer is doing business from.
Now, there are some payroll companies out there, payroll service providers, that can convert wages into cryptocurrency. But you still have to take a deeper look into that. A lot of this is emerging right now. And some of the crypto markets on the recording date of this podcast are currently down 71% from where they were just even a short 6 months ago. So I keep bringing up the crypto thing because it's a huge point of contention for a lot of people out there. They want to go deeper into that crypto world. I'm just saying use caution. That's all I'm saying in that regard.
Yeah, it's funny that you bring that up. I actually just saw my my first crypto ATM this week.
Was it real? It was a real thing. Yeah. Yeah,
it was in a drinking establishment around the corner here from my house, and I walked in there and I was going by the bathroom and I was like, oh my God, there's a crypto ATM. I don't know anything about crypto.
Yeah.
So, I was just kind of like giggling about it, but I was like, I don't really know what to do with this. But now I want to go look it up to see, okay, I want to go use this ATM. What do I do? What do I do?
Kind of wild. Hey, with the paychecks, bank access, ATMs, you mentioned ATMs, but traditional ATMs, having those on site at your facility, cash cards, you talked about those, but the ATM thing. Now, from the employer perspective, should you have an ATM on site at your facility? Should that be a key focal point? Would that be a benefit for you? I guess it depends on the industry that you're in as well.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. It does depend on the industry. Like if you're in an industry that, maybe you have a lunchroom, and, we already established that many of our employees don't have a bank. They may not have a credit card either. So, many things are cashless these days. But if you have a lunchroom and your employees go in there to buy lunch and they don't have a credit card, they don't have a debit card, and they want to pay cash. And by the way, that cash they're getting it from the cash card, that the payroll card is what it's really called, that you're giving them when they get their check on Thursday or Friday. Well, can they go over to the ATM in your lunchroom or wherever it is and take money right from it to buy their lunch in cash? Or can they just go into the ATM and say, okay, now I have enough money to go pay my rent. I'm going to go pay my landlord in cash. So there's all these things. It's going to be different for every industry. Some industries, this is going to be not a conversation at all. But what is going to be a conversation is what you just brought up, is the different types of payments, such as crypto. Some industries and maybe executives or salaried people, whatever it might be, might say, I want to get paid in this way. And you have to look at the laws at every single one of your states. And again, not just where your company is, but where your employees are located.
Yeah, big time. And taking a look at the FDIC's website with some of the bank statistics that you had brought forward earlier. In 2019, 8.5% of U.S. households used general-purpose reloadable prepaid cards. That was down from 9.7% in 2017 and 10.2% in 2015. Although prepaid card use is continued to be more prevalent among unbanked households than among banked households. It's something to keep in mind, especially when that payday comes along and direct deposit's just not an option.
Yeah, and it's also, you want to be aware of your worker demographic, lower income households, less educated households, Black, Hispanic, American Indian, Alaskan Native, disabled households are less likely to use a bank credit card or a bank ATM card. And so you do need to really get with your HR department and this is where it's important to start tracking this information of the demographics of your employees, because sure, if you have a small company of 25 employees, you can physically, view people and guess at what their demographics are. But let's really get the actual information and then ask your employees, what do you want? With that said, let's end this session here and go on to our next episode, our final episode, where we are going to talk about what other benefits do people want and a few more statistics and survey results.
Thank you for joining the HR Empowerment Podcast, brought to you by Aurora Training Advantage. We hope you've gained new insight and strategies to navigate the HR profession. We look forward to you joining us again on the HR Empowerment Podcast. Welcome to the HR Empowerment Podcast, where we will uncover strategies and new insights from HR professionals who discuss up-to-date regulations, best practices, and the most pressing topics like diversity and equity, leadership, dealing with difficult situations, and much more that affect your bottom line and business. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to our last session here. What benefits do people want? Here's an idea. Why don't you ask them?
Wendy, I'm going to tell you, and everyone, I'm JC, by the way. It's a pleasure to be back here. I'm going to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I think one of the biggest things that people want, Wendy, is continued training and content that they want, that they feel is valuable. And to that, it's our pleasure to continue doing this for you through Aurora Training Advantage, through the HR lady, Wendy Sellers. It's such a joy. So happy to be back here. What do employees want? I'm going to tell you right now. Some of them just want time off and to be left alone. They don't want to hear from you. They don't want to fill out any more HR forms. They're already on board. They just want to get paid and be left alone.
Right? Don't we all? Don't leave your employees completely alone, because they may think that you don't care about them at all. And,
right.
I probably say this on most of the podcasts that we were do together is surveys are awesome because you actually ask people what do they want, and then you act on it. But if you don't plan on acting, then don't ask. And I truly mean that, not just being sarcastic, but if you're asking anybody, people you live with, your family members, your neighbors, if you're asking them for ideas and then you just choose to ignore them, they're going to stop talking to you, and then they're going to say, just leave me alone.
That's quite true. Look, Benefits Outlook survey. It surveyed over 300 businesses on how they've adapted their benefits offerings to this new world of work over the past few years. And through this survey, trying to find out some of the things that popped at the top of the list. Physical health programs. Here's your top 10. Physical health programs, mental health programs, employee engagement efforts, childcare assistance, flexible scheduling. There's one hand. Let's get the other hand open. Keep going. The option to continue working remotely, pet insurance, flexible PTO, financial wellness programs, and personalized benefit options. A lot of what we've already talked about to a degree. This is great. We're on target.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's just so much. The old the days of just offering people, here's the cookie cutter, they need to be gone, because we have many generations in the workforce. So a wide variety of ages with a wide variety of needs. We have a lot of people that may be single or in a relationship with or without kids. We're having more and more adults without kids. And so, the family plans may seem like you may have an amazing family, say, health insurance plan, but that doesn't help the single person who's maybe healthy and says, I take care of my own stuff. I don't need that health. Can I get that value though?
Right.
That costs you $1,000. Can I get that $800 in my check now because I don't need it, but my coworker's getting it? And it's a tough one, because there's laws that protect the benefits specifically for health insurances so that it's not discriminatory. But in the big picture, it kind of is, right?
Or maybe you have coverage through your significant other who works somewhere else. So now you are not of a health insurance burden to said employer. And now that employer doesn't have to pay you anymore. They already agreed on what that salary is. So you're taking a pay cut by being there.
Yeah, kind of, right? I mean, these are real conversations that I'm sure many of you HR professionals that are listening have actually had employees ask you about if you do offer a health benefit. There are things called opt-out benefits where so say I have insurance through somebody else for whatever it is, and I say I'm going to opt out of your plan, and when I do that, you're going to pay me extra money in my paycheck every week, every other week, so that I don't get on your health insurance plan.
Yeah,
there's a catch-22 there. I mean, if you give people the opt-out benefit, many companies make them prove that they have health insurance somewhere else so that they're not just taking the money and now they don't have any benefits if they're sick. You got to look at your state laws. I personally am not a fan of saying, we want everyone to have health insurance, and if you have it somewhere else, we'll give you money, but you got to prove it because we don't trust you. Listen, you hired adults. If they don't want health insurance and they want to take the money, that's on them. You may think that you're doing the right thing by controlling them and mandating that they are healthy. But if somebody chooses to not be healthy, if you give them health insurance or not, they're not going to the doctor.
Yeah. No. You've got a great point there.
So remember, we're not their moms, we're not their dads, we're not their spouses. We are their employers, and we should be there to guide, to educate, to coach and counsel. But they're adults, and once they're educated, they should be making their own decisions.
You brought up something great there. Guide, educate, coach, and counsel. Look, if your company provides stock options and other more complex types of compensation, you could start thinking about financial wellness benefits as well, providing your employees with resources that they need to make the most of what is available to them. Is a gesture that they're going to remember for the rest of their lives. You're probably already working with accountants, financial advisors, maybe even banks. So why not inquire about benefits that they could provide directly to your employees? There's something to consider.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great point. Thank you for bringing that up. Most of you listening probably have, a corporate bank account with a bank or many banks. You know what? Make them work for your money. Say, hey, you need to come into my organization virtually or in person and host lunch and learns for my employees so that they have a financial wellness class and that they understand, how to get a loan, how to pay off debt, things like that. Most of the banks are going to do this stuff for free or very, very cheap because that's added value for you hiring them and keeping them as your bank. Think about that with every vendor that you use. So not just the health insurance, but the banks, the gyms, everything.
Oh, yeah.
Not just about financial wellness, about mental health care. What about that? Are you going to have mental health care, lunch and learns, or individual coaching courses, for example, or sessions that maybe you'll pay for on behalf of your employee, even though you don't have health insurance?
Oh, big time. Discount automotive maintenance programs, also something else to consider going into group buys in that regard. Look, all of these unique measures, this is all what fuels your desire to provide exceptional service that will make you unrivaled in your industry. You just got to open up the parameters, think outside the box a little bit, and see where you can push those boundaries.
Absolutely. And, we talked about in the last session or the one before about, maybe doing charity days and volunteering at charities and paying your employees to do so. I do encourage you to do it as group activities so that at least a handful of employees are doing it together, if not a whole group of employees throughout the year. So it helps build that camaraderie. Again, you're less likely to walk away from your friend when you've had a bad day at work versus your boss who you don't necessarily like. So those charity days, it helps build that engagement and that morale and that friendship. And it kind of, it's the glue that holds it together a little bit. And for certain charities, depending on what they're having you do, you may help employees learn skills. So in a couple weeks, we're going to have on a guest from Habitat for Humanity, And so tune into that. But I used to volunteer, and I still volunteer a lot for Habitat for Humanity. I just do it on the HR side now. But we used to physically get groups of employees to volunteer there. And I learned how to put a roof on. I learned how to, do things in the house that I wouldn't have normally known. But now my employer, got this event together, and then I was taught an actual skill that had nothing to do with work. And then when I bought a house, I knew how to fix things. Huge benefit. Huge.
Wendy, sometimes the employees themselves can provide such greater feedback than what we could even try to imagine out of our crystal ball. And online surveys can save money and collect responses very quickly. Paper surveys, on the other hand, they're critical in reaching out to hard-to-reach groups that don't have immediate access to the internet, let that be in warehouses or delivery personnel, etc. But when we think about surveying our employees and trying to get that proper feedback the right way to move forward with taking a look at some out-of-the-box benefits, what are some things we might want to keep in mind when we try to survey or talk to our employees?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. Number one, you have already mentioned, is make sure the survey is accessible in a format that your particular employees can access. So maybe 70% of your employees have internet access, and you actually provide a computer or a tablet that they can log into and complete the survey. If the rest do not, it's going to need to be paper or one-on-one survey. And then in the language, literally the language that they can understand, whether that's, English, Spanish, whatever it might be. So that's the number one thing. The other thing is, don't overcomplicate it in the beginning. Keep it simple. We know the rule, the KISS rule, keep it simple, and make sure that you are not just saying, hey, what do you want? Because they may go, I don't know, give me some options. So give them options like, hey, we're thinking of offering these, 7 benefits. Please rank them in the importance for you. And then if you can get more information from each individual employee, not their name, but just, I'm answering this as an individual. I'm answering this as a member of a large family. Yeah. I'm answering this as an individual who's unmarried but living with somebody else. So give them the options of the demographic. So then you could say, okay, now I could, sort this a little bit different. And then, once you go back and analyze it, make sure you talk about it to your employees. This is what we asked. This is the feedback that we get. Because one person,
you brought it up right there in the past few sentences, though, explaining the significance of data autonomy as well. And anonymity. I mean, employees are going to be more likely to provide that honest and accurate feedback if they feel confident that their responses are going to be kept confidential. And even to that, sometimes using a third-party provider to administer the survey, like a HR consultant, someone of that nature, you're not going to call an MC like me to do that. But you might turn to the HR lady, Wendy Sellers, to do it. I'm going to tell you that right now. And when it's done by the third-party provider and administered independently, it's one way to ensure that your employee confidentiality remains intact through that process. I'm sorry, I had to jump in with that.
No, it's perfect. I was going down that route as well. And the other thing I wanted to say is the transparency of here are the results, because one person may have felt really, really strongly about one benefit. But when they see the results, they can see that 90% of their coworkers were like, no, that's not what you want. And so that person may not be so upset or vocal or, throwing the towel in there. They may say, oh, wow, I didn't realize I was so different than everybody else. We're not going to please everybody.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right, though. It's critical to communicate those survey results to all your employees, whether they're positive or negative, and inform everybody as soon as possible so that it demonstrates the organization's commitment to employee well-being and to express the importance of employee feedback to the organization and your belief in transparency. And then when you're done, just give them the rest of the day off, too. Why not?
Yeah,
think outside the
right.
box.
One final comment that, I wanted to make is these making things a big deal. So, having ceremonies, having celebrations for, if you have a company sports team and you guys, you won the league, or you just have a couple sports teams, having an award ceremony, making it a big deal, years of service. Now, if you have recently or always have had a lot of high turnover, you might want to go slow with the years of service one because you need to build it up. But you need to give people a pat on the back and have fun with it. And it should be not just a big event, but it should be a big deal. And it shouldn't be just haphazardly thrown together. You want to have it organized and have somebody like JC, who's an MC of everything, to run it. So it seems like it's very, very important.
Ladies and gentlemen, employee appreciation is especially important if you are a manager. Think about this. According to Glassdoor's employee appreciation survey, 53% of people said feeling more appreciation from their boss would definitely help them stay at the company longer, despite the fact that 68% said that their boss already shows them enough appreciation. So it's imperative, if you are holding that billet, if you are in those shoes, even if you're not necessarily a manager, but you are an essential leader on your team, leading up, managing up, whoever you are, you know who you are as that natural leader listening to this podcast right now. And you know, like I do, that you have the power to affect change. It's all about hope and change.
Yeah, listen, we're not all going to be, Southwest Airlines, where we can give our employees free and unlimited flights for the employees and their dependents. But think big anyway, and figure out how you can fit it in your budget this year and something in your budget next year. Ask your employees what you want, what they want, listen to them, and do what you can to make it happen. Above all, be transparent. Thanks, everybody, for your time here today. Wendy Sellers, the HR Lady. You know how to reach me on LinkedIn or wendy@thehrlady.com.
Thank you for joining the HR Empowerment Podcast, brought to you by Aurora Training Advantage. We hope you've gained new insight and strategies to navigate the HR profession. We look forward to you joining us again on the HR Empowerment Podcast.
We enjoy interacting with the thousands of All Access members through Aurora Training Advantage every week. Feel free to reach out and get in touch with us at any time